Oh, we got some leeches. Nice. We just pull those bad boys off. Oh, right through the palm. What do I say? Don't remove it. But you're kind of screwed in this situation, so you potentially have to remove that.
I remember this.
Oh, jeez. No, man. Yeah. That sucks. You can fall from a decent amount of height and some things will happen really bad versus not. Any height 3 times your normal height. Now, people will say, oh, I'm a different tall height, but when you're an adult, if it's over 15 feet, it's a major trauma. So you can fall, land on your feet, crack your calcaneus, which is your heel bone, and then the energy can go straight up and actually can fracture anywhere in your back of your vertebral column. So you have to be really careful. So if you have back pain after falling, you need to get x-rays and get checked out. I've seen people die after falling out of a 4-story building. I've seen people survive after falling out of a 4-story building. So it just depends on how you fall, what you fall on. If you're falling in a bush versus if you're falling on concrete. Here, if you're potentially falling on ground without jagged rocks, you got a chance. It just depends on how high the fall is. There you go. So a bruise, we'll call that ecchymosis in the medical term versus a bruise. So it's just called ecchymosis. Sometimes then we'll use contusion. And then a hematoma is when there's actually like a big clot of blood underneath the tissue and expanding like blood pocket. If you have that open abrasion, you should wrap it because now it's open to, wound to the area. It's not a laceration, but it's just skin that's like gone. So it needs to be covered unless you want to get infected.
I'll go look for it.
I love that they integrated like wound healing and plants into this game. So there are lots of different medications out there that potentially were derived back from plants. The easiest one that you can think of is aloe vera, right? So aloe vera is like an anti-inflammatory, but you don't want to put a lot of this stuff directly into a wound. So you're using a leaf to cover it up like a bandage. So is it actually getting into the wound to help heal it? Probably less likely, because they've done a lot of studies on this stuff before relating to the fact of like, do these things significantly help more than the things that we have in modern day medicine? No, because otherwise we would use them because they're a much better renewable source. There's some other woolly lamp ear, which is another type of like plant that you can put over things. There's a ton of different like medicinal plant type things that you can use in the wilderness, but you have to actually know what you're looking for because then there are a lot of things that can cause harm. If you're going to use this, make sure you have like a field manual or something like that when you're out in the wilderness or the jungle to know which plants, berries, things like that you can actually take, put topically or ingest. There you go. There you go. Nice. Wrapping it nicely on there. Sweet. We would put, bacitracin on it, which is a topical antibiotic ointment. We would wrap it with gauze and maybe put an ace wrap over top. Same idea. Oh, we got some leeches. Nice. Just pull those bad boys off. They actually secrete like an anti-clot forming type of enzyme. They actually use those in medicine sometimes to help with wound healing, leaching out like different types of potential poisons out of the system. Wow, look at those lacerations. Those are nasty. So if you get a laceration like that, it's a dirty wound. It's huge. If it's not treated, it can get infected, and then the infection can then get into your bloodstream, and then if it's in your bloodstream, you become bacteremic, and then you become septic, and if you don't get the right treatment right away, you can potentially die. So if you had these wounds, you got to wash them out, clean them out.
Just put some ants on it.
Oh, yes. No, don't do that. Don't put ants on it. It's actually crazy. Sometimes for wound healing, they'll actually use maggots. People will actually come into the ER with maggots on their wounds. And when you actually look at it first, you want to vomit because it's just like a sight that's not normal to see. But then you look at the wound, and it's actually doing pretty well because the maggots are eating all the dead tissue. Pretty crazy.
Will cause you some sanity loss, but will...
That's actually pretty funny. But that's actually crazy. That's a game where it's actually like teaches you how like different survival techniques. If people are actually really interested, there's like the wilderness survival courses out there. There's actually a branch off of emergency medicine that's wilderness emergency medicine that you can check out. You can become a fellow. It's really cool. You don't actually have to be a doctor to kind of join in. So, different courses that are available, people are interested.
A new unwanted tenant in your body.
I work in Southern California. What was interesting around here is a lot of rattlesnake bites. One person, I'm like, did you see the rattlesnake? And they're like, yeah, of course, it's in the back of our truck. Like, don't bring it here in the emergency department. Take a photo of it. We don't need to actually see it. We're in kind of certain areas where it's like cowboy country and people will actually catch these bad boys and bring them in. So you got to be careful. The baby rattlesnakes will actually release all their venom and cause a lot more problems than the adult one, which might actually be like a dry bite or just like a warning bite. Yeah, what's going on there with the lights, but it looks like we got a crash landing airplane.
Bastard.
Oh, right through the palm. You know, you actually could potentially go straight through the soft tissue. What do I say? Don't remove it, but you're kind of screwed in the situation. So you potentially have to remove that, right? Get basically dressings ready before you remove it. You know, potentially whatever alcohol you have, isopropyl alcohol if you had it on the airplane. But you basically pull that bad boy out and cause compression to the area. Make sure you can move all your fingers. If you go in between, you're fine. If you fracture your hand, you still need to get that darn thing out of there. You can't just walk around with it on an island after an airplane. Oh, that's gotta hurt. Yes. There you go. Look, he's got no blood in his body. It's not bleeding. I mean, throw it in the snow would actually probably be helpful, just to slow the blood flow to that area. Sneaking up on a bear. Oh man. Hopefully that was like a 10 millimeter or a 45 or a 50 cal. You're getting mauled by a bear. And you survived. Cool. We got a fire started.
Come on, little fire.
You died from blood loss. There you go. So biggest thing is you got to think about your ABCs in any type of major trauma, injuries, airway, breathing, circulation. You have an airway, make sure you're breathing okay, and then, you know, stop any major bleeding, because if you lose enough blood, you're going to die, especially in that situation. You have whatever blood you have in your body, and that's it. You're not going down the road to the hospital to get a pint or two of blood from the local Red Cross. Okay, it doesn't work that way. You're mauled by an animal and you got these wounds and you're in the wilderness. The cold actually will probably inhibit wound healing. They've done studies where actually changing a little bit of degrees one way or the other is actually not good. We're at optimal temperatures, crazy amount of heat. You know, think about wounds that are infected, they're very hot. So if you have a too high of a wound, potentially is there a feeding ground for bacteria, versus if you're super cold, is the bacteria load decreased, but because it's decreasing how much blood is circulating to this area, will it take a lot longer to heal, which then in turn increase your risk of infection because your wound is taking longer to heal. Optimally, you want to be at a normal temperature. One does not have an advantage over the other. Oh my gosh, not good. Bear done. You know, in my career, I've never actually seen a bear injury. Typically in Southern California, you don't get too many of them. But we do see, like cat, the most common stuff is like cat bites, dog bites, snake bites, stingrays. That's another one that we see a lot of in the emergency department. Oh man, now you think about like puncture wounds to the bone itself from a bite like that. And then obviously there's soft tissue injury, puncture wound, potential lacerations. When we have puncture wounds that come into the emergency department, you actually don't close those up either. You wash them out as best you can and bandage them up, because whatever potential bacteria is seated in the wound, you don't want to, again, close it into that tissue, and then you're going to cause worsening issues. Oh, you died because your flare's out. Oh, like torn clothing, laceration, bruising. Nice. Actually, it's nice that they actually provide that in the game. We're in the middle of nowhere, but we got power lines? Nice. Well, I'm gonna get you with my acorn. Wow, this game's got bandages, food. Actually, it's pretty awesome. Give me some energy drink right there. Nice. What is in an energy drink? Potentially caffeine and some electrolytes and water, maybe. Yeah, potentially. We got painkillers. Awesome. Probably ibuprofen, acetaminophen. We got bandages. We had topical antiseptics, which are good. Actually pretty impressive. You faded into the long dark. Have you ever been in a whiteout before? I have, where like literally you're just in the snow and you can't see anything. It's kind of scary. It's almost nauseating. That is a moose or a caribou. I don't know the difference in the game, but they are big and don't mess with a moose. Well, that's what I know. got like a flat line. Oh, broken ribs in the wilderness, not fun. It's gonna hurt every time you take a deep breath. You can't splint it, you can't put wraps on it. If you try not to take deep breaths, you're gonna increase your risk of pneumonia, which is an infection in your lungs because you're not clearing as much oxygen out of your lungs because you're not taking a deep breath. We call that splinting, basically when you're holding it and not taking a deep breath. So it sucks, but you gotta take deep breaths when you have rib fracture. So when you're going into a jungle, you got to check the area where you're going to because sometimes you need different vaccines that aren't normal. So what am I talking about? Yellow fever, typhoid, make sure your hepatitis is up to date, make sure your tetanus and diphtheria, because these are crazy. Like where like the water's not treated well or food, where it's like poop. You're thinking about like typhoid fever, which is a type of salmonella, which untreated can cause major issues relating to like perforating your bowel, having like bleeding within your intestines. You know, those are big things. Make sure that your vaccines are up to date. Some sort of travel website and find out what you need when you travel to a certain area. Oh, I feel like a zombie or something coming after him. Don't touch it. Leave it be. Oh, getting bit by a wolf. Nice. The undead. So like if you get bit by a zombie, do you turn into a zombie, that sort of thing in this game? Versus you get infected with whatever bacteria or whatever they have, and potentially. You are infected. Get antibiotics. There you go. So obviously antibiotics only work against bacteria, right? So if there's different viruses that are causing your ailment or infection, antibiotics aren't going to work. Oh my gosh. What an old gun, I guess, or futuristic. Why you gotta put like the gunpowder and bullet down there? That's crazy. These animals, you know, potentially we say rabies, right? Like, oh my gosh, rabies. If you get bit by an animal that potentially has rabies, typically it's more like skunks and fox, like these kind of smaller animals. If there's a risk for it, you need to get two different types of treatment. You need to get the immunoglobulin, which you would inject around the bite and kind of all different areas of your body. And then you would also get vaccinated. We don't typically do prophylactic vaccinations for rabies, but typically a vaccination for rabies is at least 4 shots on separate days, plus all the immunoglobulin that you would get via an IM injection, which is painful. So try to stay away from any weird stray animals, please. So outside of vampires and zombies, and if somebody actually just bites you on the neck, it's just like getting bit anywhere else. You're probably not getting someone to bite you all the way down through the sternocleidomastoid, your scalenes, your platysmus, that then they get into the major blood vessels that you're going to bleed out and die. Now, if you have a big bear, grizzly bear, a tiger, a wolf, maybe a different story because they have a much bigger grasp with their mouth. But no, it just has to do with basically if you're going to bleed out or not, and then infection. Got you. Tag, you're it. Oh yes, they're coming at you. They always go for the jugular, and I think it's just maybe they want the blood, but are you actually going to get infected normally? No, just normal mouth bacteria. If you're walking around in a zombie apocalypse world, why won't you come up with a contraption that just protects your neck? Come on, it's not rocket science. Like, just wear something around your neck. They can't bite you. Just squish your head. Oh, Dunzo. I'm glad they didn't show that. What? He just took his hand into the guy's throat. All I can think about is like that old school movie with Patrick Swayze, Roadhouse, where he's like the bouncer and he just like gets in there and rips people's throats out. Oh, now you're on fire. Asphyxiation, you're not gonna be able to breathe, you're gonna have a swollen airway, and then there's gonna be no oxygen for you to breathe. Crazy. If you get a 1st-degree burn, there's nothing to do. It's gonna heal in like a week. 2nd-degree burn, it's going to take 1 to 3 weeks to heal. It all depends. It also depends if you need a skin graft. For 3rd-degree burns, definitely need a skin graft. And once you actually get a skin graft, it's probably going to take you about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks for that to heal really well. And 4th-degree burns, you got to get all the dead tissue off there. You got to maybe replace it with some other muscle tissue. People die from bad infections. The worst one I've ever seen, basically the whole body was a 3rd-degree burn. All the skin needed to be cut off, like totally gone to actually have the person survive, and it was just crazy. Ow! What? Not gonna survive that today. And look at this thing! Holy cow! This is like a bear on steroids or something. Like he's had a bad day wrapped up in barbed wire. Don't they say, like, play dead? I don't know how easy it is to play dead in this situation. Definitely need some antibiotics. Maybe some topical antibiotics, maybe a little bit of IV. You tell me what you would probably need if you survived that. That was sick. I geek out when I can see different types of treatments being used in video games, and there's an opportunity for even more to be used in these different types of wounds and injuries and different infections. So very cool. We got like a variety of different ways, survival techniques in all different games, and I thought that's really cool that these companies actually incorporate that in. If you guys enjoyed this, check out Gameology at YouTube and Facebook. Check out my channel, Dr. ER, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Until next time.